Don't turn around. The voice in his wall knew what he was about to do. Before he did, Ethan signed the lease on a Tuesday. The apartment was a relic, tucked away in a quiet, forgotten corner of the city. The rent was cheap, almost suspiciously so. The building itself was a tomb of outdated design and poor lighting, corridors stretching into shadow like dark veins. The air was thick with a strange, heavy silence, as if sound itself had been absorbed by the old plaster and wood. It was exactly what he could afford, and for a moment, he thought he was lucky. That first night, as the city's distant hum bled through the thin glass of his window, he heard it, a whisper, faint and dry, like dead leaves skittering across pavement. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, but mostly from inside the walls. It spoke a single word, his name, Ethan. He sat up in his makeshift bed on the floor.
Listen, house.
Just the tired groan of the buildings settling.
It must be stress, he thought. The move, the new job. Just his mind playing tricks on him. He lay back down and forced his eyes shut. But the whispers didn't stop. They returned each night, never loud, always patient. A soft, constant presence in the quiet of his apartment. Then, something changed. The whispers began to anticipate him. As he reached for his phone on the nightstand, a voice murmured from the wall, "Your phone." He froze, his hand hovering in the air. A cold dread trickled down his spine. He dismissed it as coincidence. But it happened again. He walked toward the light switch, and the whisper beat him to it. The light. Each time, the prediction was flawless, delivered in a calm, dispassionate tone just a second before he acted. Paranoia began to set in, a creeping vine choking his thoughts. Sleep became a luxury he could no longer afford. 2. He'd lie awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, every creak of the building sending a jolt of fear through him. He tried to drown it out. He blasted music, the bass thumping against the walls, but the voice simply found the spaces between the beats. A rhythmic, insidious counterpoint to the melody. He thought company might help. He invited friends over, their laughter and conversation filling the small space with a warmth it had never known. And in their presence, the whisper vanished. The apartment felt normal, inanimate. He felt a wave of relief, thinking maybe he had been going crazy. But the moment the door clicked shut behind his last friend, the silence that followed was different. It was heavier, expectant, Neng. The whisper returned, closer this time, as if it had been waiting just behind his ear the whole time. Alone again. The very structure of the apartment began to feel malevolent. The walls, in the dim light, seemed to subtly pulse, expanding and contracting in a slow, rhythmic motion, as if the entire building was taking a deep, quiet breath. The single whisper fractured. Now, at night, he heard multiple voices layered over one another, a chorus of soft murmurs that all spoke as one entity. They were no longer just predicting his actions. They were invading his mind. They began to finish his sentences, whispering the end of a thought he hadn't even fully formed. They echoed his deepest fears back at him. Death, giving them shape and sound in the darkness. They'll think you're insane. No one can help you. You'll never leave. Driven by a desperate need for answers, Ethan started digging into the building's history. He spent hours in the city archives, his hands trembling as he sifted through old newspapers and public records. The stories he found were fragmented, but a chilling pattern emerged. Several previous tenants of his exact apartment had vanished over the decades. No sign of a struggle, no bodies ever recovered. They had simply ceased to exist, their lives ending in an unanswered question mark. One night, the terror became too much to bear. He was a prisoner in his own home, haunted by an unseen all-knowing presence, backed into a corner, both literally and figuratively. he did the one thing he hadn't dared to do. He crawled across the floor, the old wood groaning under his weight, and pressed his ear flat against the cold, pulsing wall. His own breathing was ragged, loud in the suffocating quiet. He swallowed, his throat dry, and whispered a single, trembling question into the plaster. "What do you want?" Long, agonizing silence followed. The air grew thick, electric. Heat could feel the vibrations in the wall, a low hum that resonated deep in his bones. Then, an answer came. Not from one spot, but from the entire room, a collective, intimate whisper that wrapped around him like a shroud. Your silence. From that night on, Ethan stopped speaking. He moved through his days like a ghost, his voice locked away. But as his own silence grew, the whispers in the wall grew stronger. He began to hear new fragments in the chorus, his own voice, repeating things he'd said days, weeks before. The apartment no longer felt empty. It felt crowded, filled with unseen presences, a congregation of the lost. Who's being consumed, his identity unraveling thread by thread, absorbed into the very fabric of the building. He was becoming another whisper among the many. Morning light streams through the window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the silent air. The apartment is perfectly still, quiet. Neighbors would later say they never heard Ethan leave. A few days pass. The lock on the front door turns. A new tenant. A young woman steps inside, her keys jingling brightly in the stillness. The apartment looks empty, unremarkable. That night, she turns off the lights, and the room is plunged into darkness. A soft, dry whisper emerges from the wall, testing a new name. And then, a final, urgent warning. Don't turn around.